Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we invite you to step quietly into another time, a place of rustling silk and sharpened steel, where the air is often thick with incense, and the silence is as much a command as a courtesy. We are traveling to feudal Japan, an era of elegance and empire, of code and caste, of order and obedience. But this story is not about the legends, not tonight. We will not begin with mighty warriors astride powerful steeds or with the clash of sword against sword under cherry blossoms. Instead, we begin with a man kneeling on a floor of polished wood, hands trembling slightly as he secures a helmet strap. His eyes stay low. His back aches. He speaks only when spoken to. He is the one who carries the sword, but never wields it. His name is not remembered, and yet his world was as real and as rich in its own quiet way as that of the master he served. This is the story of those in the shadows of the samurai, of silent corridors and invisible burdens, of lives lived in service, in silence, in fear, and in the intricate beauty of one of the world's most layered societies. So find a comfortable place, let your breath soften, and imagine yourself, centuries ago, walking behind your master under a rising sun. Let us begin with why it truly sucked to be a samurai's servant. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a samurai's servant. Imagine it is dawn. The floor beneath you is cold. Tatami mats, neatly arranged, hold the chill of the early morning air. A faint glow filters in through rice paper screens. Outside a crow, 'cause once you have been awake for hours. You are a servant in the household of a low-ranking samurai, a warrior of status, but not wealth. And so, that burden of status, maintaining appearances, routines, rituals, falls on you. Your first task is to stoke the coals. The brazier must be lit with care, with patience, and without smoke. Too much smoke, and your master will be displeased. You kneel, always kneeling. Your knees are accustomed to it, though the ache never truly leaves. Once the coals glow, you make the tea. There is no room for error. The brush of the ladle, the flick of the wrist, these things matter more than your own comfort. The teacup must be warmed, the water poured just so, the tea whisked to a delicate froth. Not too bitter, not too weak. Your master prefers it slightly foamy on top. You've learned this silently over years of careful observation. He's never said as much, but the smallest grimace at the wrong texture, you remember. Now it is time to prepare his armor. You move to the chest in the corner, lacquered black, trimmed with brass. The Yoroi armor is heavy. You lift it piece by piece, polishing each section with a soft cloth. You check for nicks, stains, scuffs. Even though he hasn't drawn his sword in months, it doesn't matter. The armor must gleam. You take extra care with the menpo, the face guard. Its fierce expression, snarling, mustached, is meant to terrify enemies. But to you, it's just another mask. Another object to clean. The sword, though the sword is sacred, your master's katana must be cleaned daily, even if it hasn't been drawn. You lay it on silk, lift it with reverence. You wipe the blade from spine to edge, never touching the cutting surface with your fingers. A smudge could mean rust. Rust could mean dishonor. Dishonor could mean the end of your position, or worse. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't eat until he's eaten. You don't rest until he sleeps. And when he drinks sake into the late hours, you sit outside the door, waiting, still, and always, deeply, often, silently. At times, it feels as if your back is permanently curved into servitude. There is no room for anger, no voice for resentment, only duty and fear. Because a servant who disrespects his master, or even appears to, can be punished without consequence. A slap, a dismissal, or simply no more food. Even your name might be forgotten, replaced by your role. The boy who cleans, the one who carries the bow, that quiet one. You may be replaced, even buried, without ceremony, but you are also trusted in small, suffocating ways. You hear what others don't. You learn the rhythms of the household, the tension in a pause, the meaning behind a call. You understand your master's moods better than he does. At night, when all is silent, you sleep curled near the weapons rack. If you dream, you don't remember it. In the morning, your hands smell faintly of oil and smoke. You rise, you bow, and begin again, because you are not a samurai. You serve one, and that is your only role. As the quiet shadows of service fade behind us, let us now walk into another kind of story. A tale not of servants, but of vengeance, of loyalty, betrayal, and honor carried beyond death. The story of 47 men who waited and watched and struck when the world least expected. Let us continue now with the tale of the 47 Ronin. Segment 2, the 47 Ronin and the art of revenge. Imagine a winter night. In Edo, what we now call Tokyo, the streets are hushed beneath a soft blanket of snow. Lanterns flicker behind wooden shutters. Beneath the stillness, something stirs. Men move silently, dressed not as warriors, but as workers. They carry no banners, they wear no crests, but their eyes are steady and their minds are clear. This is the night of the 47 Ronin, former samurai, now masterless, who have returned to finish what honor demanded. But to understand this quiet act of vengeance, we must first return ... to the beginning. It begins in the year 1701. Japan, under the rule of the Tokugawa, is at peace. But peace, in this era, is a rigid thing. Samurai, no longer called to war, are pressed into roles of administration, diplomacy, and ceremony. Appearances are everything. Deference, expected, etiquette, law. In the heart of this world was a man named Asano Naganor, the young daimyo, or lord, of the Aka domain. He was summoned to Edo to fulfill ceremonial duties at the shogun's court. A great honor, but also a burden. In Edo, Asano encountered a powerful and notoriously difficult official. Kira was a master of protocol, expected to instruct Asano in the complex etiquette of court behavior. But Kira, it is said, and believed he deserved gifts, bribes, offerings for his guidance. Asano, proud and principled, refused. Tensions simmered. Kira humiliated Asano publicly, belittling him in front of others, until finally, one day, in a moment of boiling anger, Asano drew his short sword inside Edo Castle and struck at Kira. He wounded, but did not kill him. This was a grave offense. Drawing a weapon within the Shogun's palace was considered a severe crime, regardless of reason. And so, Asano was ordered to take his own life. Ritual susa seppuku. His lands were confiscated, his house dissolved, and thus, 47 of his most loyal retainers became Ronin, samurai with no master, honor-bound, disgraced, stateless. In many ways, they were expected to vanish, to wander, to fall into obscurity or become mercenaries. But they had another plan. They would wait. For nearly 2 years, they scattered. Some took menial jobs. One posed as a drunkard. Another sold goods in the market. They made themselves small, forgotten. The world believed they had moved on. And then, on that snowy night, in December of 1702, they struck. They entered Kira's estate silently, climbing over the walls. No fanfare, no chaos. They moved with careful coordination, seeking only one man. Kira was eventually found, hiding in a storage shed. His guards defeated, his pride undone, and yet, in a moment of final honor, they offered him the chance to die as a samurai, to commit seppuku and preserve dignity. And so, they ended his life with a clean stroke. With Kira's head wrapped in cloth, they marched to their master's grave. There, they offered it before his tomb. A final act of loyalty, carried through in silence. Then they turned themselves in. The shogunate faced a dilemma. These men had broken the law, but they had acted in accordance with Bushido, the samurai code. Public sympathy was with them. After much debate, they were allowed to die with honor. Each one committed to their graves lie together at Sengakuji Temple in Tokyo, still visited, still remembered, for their patience, for their loyalty, for their strange, quiet path between law and honor. And yet, the story is not so simple. Scholars debate, were they noble or murderers? Was it justice or pride? Did they uphold the code or merely wrap revenge in ritual? You may never know for certain. But on that cold night, in the hush before dawn, 47 men stepped through snow, not for glory, not for gold, but because something in their world demanded it. And now, we turn from revenge to something even more elusive: secrecy. Let us travel deeper into the mountains, into mist-shrouded valleys, where shadows move and secrets are whispered. It is time to explore the hidden world of Japan's most enigmatic agents, the EGA Ninja. Segment 3. Secrets of the EGA Ninja Scrolls. Imagine it is night. The moon is veiled in cloud, the forest murmurs quietly. Wind through cedar branches, the rustle of a fox slipping through underbrush. Somewhere nearby, a foot brushes soft earth, but leaves no trace. You are in Aichi province, deep in the mountainous heart of Japan. The air is damp, the slopes are steep, and the people here have learned to disappear. This is the homeland of the ninja, not the myth. Not the silent assassins clad in black, darting from rooftops, wielding throwing stars. But real people, farmers, monks, laborers, who lived under threat and occupation, who adapted, and who passed down their knowledge in scrolls. Tonight, we unravel their world. Quietly, the Ige ninja were not superhuman. They were survivors. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Japan was a fractured land, a patchwork of warring domains. The central government was weak, and powerful warlords, or daimyo, fought constantly for control. But Aiki, a remote province surrounded by mountains, became a stronghold of independent peasants and minor samurai who governed themselves. They lacked wealth, so they relied on intelligence, strategy, and deception. The IGA families developed techniques of stealth, infiltration, and guerrilla resistance. These techniques were passed down through generations, orally and eventually in writing. The Bansen Shukai, compiled in the late 17th century, is one of the most famous ninja manuals, a sprawling, meticulous text. It details not martial arts, but psychology, disguise, movement, and survival. It includes instructions like how to move without making noise, by walking toe-to heel on certain floor types, how to blend in, wearing the robes of a monk, a merchant, even a flute-playing entertainer, how to distract a guard, with small fires set at the edges of an estate, how to gather information, by listening through thin paper walls or using coded signals across distances. One section describes the use of powders, not poisons, but powders to blind, irritate, or confuse. Another advises using cats to test for traps. A cat will not walk across a floorboard if it senses a hidden pit. Much of it reads like soft science, cautious, improvised, deeply empirical, and despite what popular stories suggest, the ninja did not typically wear black. In fact, they avoided attention by wearing whatever made them look ordinary. A servant's robe, a porter's bundle, a blind man's cane. Their power was not in combat, but in knowing when to avoid it. They did not conquer castles, they mapped them. They did not kill leaders, they whispered secrets about them. Their goal was not glory, but survival and silence. The IGA region, along with nearby Koga, became famous for its ninja families, each with its own specialties: climbing techniques, camouflage, signal flares, even breathing methods for swimming silently beneath the surface of a moat. And yet, their autonomy did not last. In 1581, Oda Nobunaga, a powerful warlord, invaded IGA with a massive force. The ninja resisted, but were overwhelmed. The province was burned, villages destroyed, families scattered. Those who survived went underground. Some became espionage agents for Tokugawa Ieyasu, who would later unify Japan. Others faded into myth. What remains today are fragments, scrolls, legends, second-hand accounts. The Bensen Shukai, with its faded ink and gentle, measured script, offers only a glimpse. Its lessons are not about battle, but about awareness. The way a step can echo through bamboo, the way smoke can obscure a retreat, the way silence itself can be a shield. So if you ever walk the forested paths of Iga and feel a hush around you, perhaps it is the wind, or perhaps it is the echo of 1,000 careful footsteps, long faded, but never quite forgotten. And now we shift our gaze once more, from shadows to sunlight, from forests to corridors lined in gold and polished stone. Let us step into the inner world of power, the world of the Shogun's court, where silence could be deadly, but silence could also mean control. We end tonight's journey with a day among the elite, a day at the court of the Shogun. Segment 4, a day at the court of the Shogun. Let your mind drift to Kyoto, or later, Edo, depending on the century, the capital of ceremony, the heart of power. It is early morning, and the mist still clings to the tiled rooftops of sprawling palace complexes. You are walking through a world of absolute control. Your sandals click softly against polished wooden floors. The scent of incense warm, woody, slightly floral curls through the air. Paper walls diffuse the morning light into a gentle glow. Every corner is clean, every mat precisely aligned. You are entering the court of the Shogun. The Shogun was the military ruler of Japan, a position held in various forms for centuries, but consolidated most famously under the Tokugawa shogunate from the early 1600s to the mid-1800s, while the emperor remained in Kyoto. A sacred figure had the real political power rested with the Shogun, often seated in Edo, what we now know as Tokyo. And in the Shogun's court, appearances were everything. The day began before sunrise. Officials and retainers rose in near silence, attended by servants who moved with practiced, near-invisible efficiency. Robes were chosen, carefully layers of silk, muted or radiant, depending on rank and occasion. Even the nod of a sash could signify status. When you entered the court's inner halls, you did not speak unless addressed. Every word, every bow, every step was scripted. A mistake in form bowing too long or too shallow could cost a career, or worse, attract suspicion. In this world, power was expressed not through volume, but through stillness. A glance could command armies. A pause could end a discussion. The highest officials mastered the art of restraint, controlling not only their tone, but even their breath. The court was a theater of hierarchy. Those closest to the shogun had spent years, often lifetimes, maneuvering themselves through layers of political favor, familial alliances, and bureaucratic networks. You might witness a daimyo, a powerful regional lord, arrive to pay his respects. But this was not a casual visit. It was part of the Sankenkatai system, an ingenious policy that required these lords to spend every other year in each away from their home domains, while leaving their families behind as effective hostages. It was a method of surveillance disguised as honor. And so, the court was full of restrained tension. Smiles often concealed resentment. Compliments could carry insult. A misplaced word might become a weapon. Meals were exquisite but small, served in delicate lacquered trays, prepared with ritual care. Conversation, when it occurred, was gentle and layered with implication. And all around, servants watched without watching, moving in and out of rooms with near silence. They swept, polished, replenished inkstones, and lit lamps, all while avoiding the center of a room, never turning their back on a superior, never interrupting a thought. Some of these servants were themselves of noble birth, young samurai sent to serve in minor capacities, learning the invisible grammar of elite life. Others were long-serving retainers, bound to the house for generations. Music might drift in from a distant wink, soft koto strings, plucked slowly in meditative rhythm. In the gardens beyond the sliding doors, carp stirred the surface of a still pond. A crane might land, pausing momentarily before lifting again. And through it all, the shogun himself remained a distant figure, often unseen. His power was so absolute that his presence was rare, and thus even more potent. A single audience with Heimif granted might involve days of fasting, cleansing, and rehearsed motions. It was a world where stillness was strength, and where survival often depended not on loyalty, but on perception, how one appeared, when one bowed, and how little one revealed. And so, a day in the court was not simply a span of hours, was a performance, a test, a quiet chessboard of silk and shadows. As the sun dipped low and the lamps were lit, the palace remained quiet. Servants returned to their quarters. Officials retired with letters to write. And somewhere, in the deeper corridors of power, plans were being whispered. For tomorrow's theater, conclusion, a world of silence and structure. And now, as our journey comes to a close, let your mind settle with the rhythm of old Japan. From the muddy boots of a samurai servant to the polished corridors of power, from snowy rooftops where loyalty lingered, to the soft rustle of leaves in Iga's secret paths, you've traveled through a land shaped by silence, structure, and survival. The world of the samurai was not only about blades, it was about bearing, endurance, routine, and often quiet suffering. So as you lay down to rest, know this: the world has changed, but those footsteps still echo faintly. May your night be still. May your thoughts drift like mist. And may sleep find you gently, as it once found the watchers at the palace gate. Good night.